Hello everyone, and welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. If you enjoy our deep dives into the most captivating stories in Turkish entertainment, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you never miss an update. Tonight, we step into a tale that blends love, pride, and destiny, one that has circled through whispers and headlines, faded into silence, and then roared back with a single sentence. At the center are two names that have defined an era of on-screen magic and off-screen intrigue, Çağatay Ulusoy and Hazal. One of the most intense and adored duos of their generation has returned to the spotlight. And after months of distance, a few quiet words from him seem to have rekindled a hope many thought had quietly died out. It happened in a moment that didn't feel staged. No lights blinding, no dramatic pause. Just a sober acknowledgement from a man who once kept everything close to his chest. He didn't give a speech. He didn't plead. He simply said that if life offered him another chance, he would stop trying to shape the story to his rhythm, and instead let her be the compass. That line, gentle, deliberate, traveled faster than any rumor. It sounded like an admission and a vow at once. Fans who had long watched them drift apart felt something change. This wasn't a nostalgic throwback. It felt like a door, long shut, easing open. But let's not pretend this was simple. Their love story has always carried layers. What started as electric chemistry in front of the cameras turned into a real connection away from them. Years ago, they worked side by side on a hit series that glued audiences to their screens every week. People fell in love with their characters, but what everyone kept talking about was the way those eyes, his searching, hers steady, seemed to say more when the director called cut. The line between drama and reality blurred, and fans began to hope for a narrative larger than fiction. That hope was tested. Rumors multiplied. Schedules got heavier. The media's lens became unforgiving. And through it all, Hazal stayed quiet, measured, anchored, refusing to turn private pain into public content. When the topic came up, she let silence be her statement. Çağatay, on the other hand, was not always so guarded. He'd hint at the sting of a love that had slipped through his fingers, not in melodramatic confessions but with that wounded, reflective tone that suggested he knew how fleeting everything could be when pride sits in the driver's seat. Then came the meeting nobody expected but everyone had imagined. Away from cameras, away from publicists and curated pictures, they sat face to face. Sources say it wasn't a grand scene. No raised voices. No rehearsed speeches. Two people who had been bruised by the same history confronted it without flinching. The energy, we're told, was honest and grounded, like finding a familiar room in a house you thought you'd left for good. They didn't chase closure. They started with clarity. A few days later, in an interview that was supposed to be about work, the question arrived. He could have dodged it like before. He didn't. He looked up, exhaled, and admitted something most people never find the courage to admit out loud. That sometimes we cause harm without intent, that sometimes a person least deserving of pain gets the most of it. He said he had been that man, and that if fate decided to be generous, he would let her needs set the pace. No bargaining. No half measures. He didn't declare that love conquers all. He didn't try to write poetry. He simply surrendered control. Within hours, social media fed on the quiet shock of it. Old clips of their scenes exploded across timelines, edited with slow music and captions about growth. People wrote that changing for love wasn't weakness, it was maturity, the kind that only shows up after you've lost something real. Others wondered if destiny was circling back to offer them a softer landing this time. There was noise, yes, but beneath the noise was a current of understanding that felt different from the usual frenzy. A collective wish for two people to rewrite a chapter without rewriting themselves. Insiders began to describe a man reshaped by experience. The image of Çağatay as stubborn and immovable had calcified in public memory for years. But quietly, he was showing a different side. Close friends say his language around Hazal shifted, no more attempts to explain her feelings for her, no more defensiveness disguised as conviction. He spoke about love as something spacious rather than strategic, about giving it room to breathe. If she needed time, he would not clock it. If she needed distance, he wouldn't chase it. And if she found her way back, he wouldn't try to steer. He'd listen. He'd learn. He'd let the center of the story be hers. What about Hazal? True to form, she did not release a statement or engage in a narrative war. But actions have their own grammar. In a recent appearance, someone casually asked her about forgiveness, about whether it belongs in a love story that's already been lived once. She smiled, not a smile that sells anything, but the kind that hides and reveals at the same time, and said that sometimes the things you do weigh more than the things you say. People read it as a sign. Maybe they were right. Maybe they were projecting. Either way, it felt like she'd noticed the change, and that noticing was not nothing. Those who know her well say Hazal doesn't equate growth with public apologies. She values consistency over spectacle. Respect over repair for show. And that is what seems to be touching her now, not the promise of a grand gesture, but the reality of a quieter man, present without pressure, stepping back without bitterness. It's one thing to ask for another chance, it's another to arrive with different habits. Of course, the cameras always hunger for a conclusion, are they back together or not? But that's the wrong question, at least for now. What appears to be happening is more delicate. They've reached, finally, a kind of emotional equilibrium. They talk. Not to win. Not to validate a version of themselves. They talk to understand. The conversations are said to be calmer, longer, and less about what was and more about how to avoid tearing the same seam twice. There is no scoreboard, no tally of wounds and apologies. There is, instead, a sense that both of them have accepted that love is not a performance, even when the world is begging for one. Fans haven't lost the thread. If anything, the hope is stronger now that it has something adult to stand on. And the industry has noticed. Producers, who never forget chemistry when they see it, are already whispering about a new project that could put them side by side again. Whether it's a drama that leans into restraint or a story that lets them finally breathe on screen the way they're trying to breathe off it, the speculation alone has lifted an entire corner of the internet into a hum of possibility. But here's the truth sitting underneath the headlines: this is not just a romantic revival. It is a lesson in growth that has nothing to do with youth and everything to do with learning. It is a confession that power in love isn't about control. Sometimes it's about yielding at the right moments. When he says he will let her lead, he isn't disappearing. He is choosing a different kind of strength, one that doesn't need to be loud to be real. And when she refuses to settle for anything less than full respect, she isn't being difficult. She is honoring herself, and in doing so, honoring the love she might choose to accept. Imagine them years from now, telling the story of their second chance without embellishment. How silence did the healing that speeches could not, how maturity arrived later than anyone hoped but right on time for the people they're becoming. Imagine a world where the narrative wasn't about who won and who surrendered, but about two people who found the courage to stop insisting on their favorite version of events and instead tried to live the truest one. For those who watched them at the very beginning, when everything felt like a promise carved in light, it's tempting to view this as a rerun with better timing. It isn't. The stakes are higher, the edges sharper, the costs clearer. They've both seen what distance does to voices that don't get heard, and what pride does to hands that don't reach out. If they step forward now, it will be because they chose to. And if they decide that the past cannot bear the weight of a future, that will be a choice too. Either way, what they're modeling, intentionally or not, is a kind of emotional intelligence that goes missing too often in this industry. If you listen closely, you can hear it in the way people talk about them now. Not just as beautiful faces or icons of an era, but as adults who have begun to understand that love is not a prize you win once and display forever. It's a practice. It's a daily decision to soften where you once hardened, to ask where you once assumed, to step back when the story asks for it. He is learning that leadership in love sometimes means following. She is reminding everyone that patience is not passivity, it's discernment. Together, even in this careful, fragile moment, they are writing something more courageous than a reunion. They are writing a possibility. So we ask you, because you've been there from the beginning, through the storms of gossip and the bright days of applause, do they deserve that second horizon? Should a love that lost its way be invited home, or do some loves stay beautiful by remaining exactly where they are, preserved in memory rather than dismantled by reality? There is no right answer, only the answer that feels true to you. Tell us what you think in the comments. We read them all, and the best ones always remind us why these stories matter. If you crave more journeys like this, where the glitter of show business makes space for genuine emotion, subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, turn on notifications, and stay with us. The next chapter might arrive quietly, the way this one did, with a sentence that isn't loud but changes everything. Thank you for watching, for feeling, for hoping. We'll see you in the next video. Take care until then, and remember, sometimes the bravest thing two people can do is meet again without armor and tell the truth about what they want now.